This next video is a discussion on Alan Watts, the second video that I'm doing on him. I've mentioned in the past that Ayn Rand is my favorite person of all time. Alan Watts is probably my second favorite person of all time. And it's interesting because they're so different. Ayn Rand being um, into realism, objectivism, everything here on earth, how to achieve um, happiness through productive means, and Alan Watts just being completely different into idealism and Eastern philosophy. Um, he was into and studied Buddhism, all the different forms of that developed over the centuries, Taoism, Zen Buddhism, Hinduism in India, and Confucianism, and many others. Basically, what's interesting about Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion is that it's the study of reality and self and the self, as opposed to the Western religions, which are a dogma that you need to believe a certain way or you'll be punished. And those are just boring religions and and not as much fun as these because they're ongoing pursuits and the study of reality and the self. And there's so much to this, and I've wrote a bunch of terms on the board here that we'll just plow through real quick. Um, so Eastern philosophy really gets into metaphysics, which is the study of existence. And the study of reality really gets into perception, um, which leads to perception within time and space. That's the world that we live in. And uh, one of the biggest things is the appreciation of a moment in time, the now, that we're born and we are ultimately going to die and become nothing upon our death, so that we have this limited time, this realization that we have limited time on the earth, so that we need to appreciate each moment of a day, each hour, each day. We need to appreciate it and make it as phenomenal as possible, given that we have this limited amount of time. Um, Eternity, the study of eternity, um, I believe that time has always existed and always will, and we're a part of that. Um, the Western way of thinking is that we have an ego and pride, and everything is done through self-achievement and through the uh, salvation, and so forth. The Eastern way of thinking is that you need to lose the self. I've mentioned in the past that that's a really difficult concept to understand, is how do you lose yourself. I've mentioned some instances where maybe somebody's climbing Mount Everest, where the uh, person becomes one with the event and you lose track of time and so forth. That would be a phenomenal experience. Other possibly great musical performances, classical musical performances, or some great Olympic event. You may lose yourself in events like that. Um, so those are definitely ways to move towards losing the self, but it's really hard to imagine how to lose the ego and the self. Um, Given that fear of death and pain and all of that ego always comes back in. So it may be that through death is the only way that you ultimately lose the ego and the self, when you become nothing. So you have that morbid reality to it, which oddly enough, uh, maybe this realization of nirvana, because he certainly, it seems, would lose the self upon death. Um, again, Buddhism and Zen and so forth with study of what actually is before us, going with the flow, um, not fighting against it, is such a big part of a lot of what Alan Watts talked about. Also, the appreciation of change, that every moment, every day is different, and there's this mystery to life. You can never get to the stagnant definition of what existence is all about. And the reason for that, Alan Watts would say, because that would be boring. If we knew everything, there's no more reason to play the game anymore. So that is a big reason why he thinks that change may be one of the underlying natures of reality, which can also tie back into quantum mechanics. We've mentioned Heraclitus, which believes in this eternal flux to the universe, and uh, is the universe built on simple parts, or is there some transcendent reality? So possibly that this eternal change is out there, change of something, allows for this continuous mystery, which makes life ever interesting into eternity. Um, Self, again, that's basically the study of being. In the West, we have a self-consciousness, and in Eastern way of thinking, you would try to eliminate the self. As a matter of fact, they would say that the self is an illusion. You're really part of us, this grand accident, this grand scheme of all of reality and all of eternity. Again, in the West, we feel a separateness and an I, and the Eastern way of thinking is to escape out of those limits and try to transcend that. The study of yin and yang is the study of opposites and the belief that up cannot exist without down, life cannot exist without death, good cannot exist without evil, being cannot exist without non-being. So that uh, all of life, and the more you dig into this yin yang um, way of thinking, it is really true, especially with our limited minds, the way we're conceiving the universe, is that these opposites must exist. Um, Good exists because there is an existence of evil out there. So all of that is really interesting. The more that you dig into that, um, you can pursue towards all the goodness in your life, but the fact that evil is out there somewhere allows us the knowledge that we're within that good. Alan Watts talks about a lightning strike, and I like that discussion. What that is if almost a feeling that when you seek this nirvana through the Eastern way of thinking, that you may come across an instance, a lightning strikes when you realize that you are part of this grand scheme, and you have complete understanding that the universe is good, and there is nothing to fear about it, and and that you are one with the universe. So I just like that term, how he described it in some Chinese terms and symbols in regards to lightning striking. Alan Watts mentioned, well, just the study of God and reality and self all kind of tie together. But also, if you were able to approach God and you could ask one question, what would that question be? And I really like that scenario he laid out. And I guess the one question would be, why? Why is there existence? I think that would explain so much. So I'm going to stop with this as this first introduction. We'll come back and finish up some of these other points.